Hi, I'm your state representative, Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on this legislative update. Less than a month remains of the 105-day session, which is scheduled to end April 24th. Several days ago, we passed an $8.9 billion transportation budget from the House. Because of declining revenues, especially from gas taxes, the transportation budget only funds existing projects on the list, including some design work for the North-South Freeway. However, there are no new projects simply because there's no additional money to pay for them. As I see it, one of the biggest transportation tax loopholes in the state gives a huge advantage to our tribes. Most of the tribal compacts gas tax money collected by the tribes is sent to the state. However, the state keeps only 25% of that money and sends a 75% refund back to the tribes. Under the 18th Amendment to the state constitution, excise taxes on the sale, distribution, or use of motor vehicle fuel must be used exclusively for highway purposes. Here's the loophole. Tribes get a 75% refund, and they are not under the same 18th Amendment requirement. They can spend their refund on police services, boat ramps, transit services and facilities, as well as construction and maintenance of roads, but their refunds are not required to be used exclusively for highways. This is the biggest loophole in our transportation budget. Yet for some reason, the tribes continue to be protected. During debate on the transportation budget, I offered an amendment to close the tribal gas tax loophole. The amendment would have required the governor to renegotiate tribal fuel tax agreements, and it would have provided for no more than a 15% refund to the tribes, returning to 2007 levels before the economic crisis set in. It would have also restricted spending of that refund to 18th Amendment purposes only. It would have also provided accountability through auditing. And our analysts said this amendment would have recaptured more than $350 million over the next 10 years, enough to complete most of the North-South Freeway to the Spokane River. Although the amendment was defeated, I still believe the tribes should be paying their fair share. In the next few days, the Democrats will also be releasing an operating budget for the 2011-2013 cycle. Rather than talking about deficits, I believe we ought to be talking about priorities in government and where we are squandering taxpayers' hard-earned money. For example, I introduced House Bill 1976, which would require a determination of citizenship status and continuing residency for the period a person receives welfare and food stamps. That alone would save the state $183 million. The most egregious story I heard was about a guy who flew up to Washington State from the Philippines because his benefits were being cut. He didn't even live here. Washington is one of the few states that have such lax policies that we actually encourage people to come here to take advantage of our benefit system because we do not verify citizenship or residency status. Here's another example of a way we can save money, and that's to eliminate taxpayer-funded lobbyists. Why are state agencies hiring lobbyists with your tax dollars to lobby the legislature? Should it be the director or assistant director of that state agency that talks with the legislature? There are many, many more examples of efficiencies we can find in state government if we only look. You've probably heard the news. The governor's budget writers say the state is now facing a $5.1 billion budget deficit. But here's something you probably haven't heard. Even with the declining numbers from November, the state of Washington will still be collecting more in revenue during the coming 2011-2013 budget cycle than the previous 2 years. You heard that right. The state is expecting 13.8% more in revenue over the next 2 years than the previous 2 years. So what about the talk of a shortfall? Well, it's the difference between what the state still wants to spend over and above the money we actually took in. So that's something to keep in mind when the operating budget is released to the public. As we approach the final days of this session, I encourage you to pay close attention to the actions of the legislature. I encourage you to watch the legislative debate on TVW on your local cable channel or online at tvw.org. You'll also find more information on my website. You'll see that address on your screen right now. Thanks again for joining me on this legislative update. I'm your state representative, Matt Shea.